Hi, welcome to my channel. For those of you who are new to the channel, welcome. If you're not new, good to have you back. Alright, to the book review. Before we jump right into that, we're just going to take a moment and relax for a second. Get comfy in your seat. Get yourself a cup of tea. So sit back, take a sip, and let's dive right in. Today we will be discussing Reboot by Amy Tintera. It says, Amy Tintera lives in Austin, Texas with her very excited dog. That's all her website says. So, she's a New York Times best-selling author. And that's about it. She has written Reboot and All These Monsters. And some of those have sequels. I'm only familiar with Reboot. And I really like it. Alright, let's break it down. Reboot is like a sci-fi dystopian kind of thing. Age level about 15 plus. It was published by Harper Teen back in 2013 and has 365 pages. There is a sequel. Reboot was written in 2013 and Rebel, the sequel, was written in 2014. And that's all there is in that series, I guess. Duology, I guess to call it. Something like that. Anyway, Reboot. It's set in the future. I don't know if it really says when, how far in the future. It's set in Texas. And Texas is referred to as the Republic of Texas. In this society, in this world, in this future, there's a virus that it kills a lot of people. But the thing is, if you die from this virus, there is a chance that you might be what they call rebooted, which means that after you die, you come back to life as a reboot. You're alive again, but you're different. When people are rebooted, they are less human. I mean, they still look human. They look exactly how they did before they died, but they have less emotions, and like their senses are sharper and they're stronger. And the only way to kill a reboot is to like a headshot, like chopping off their head or shooting them in the head. Anything else, they'll recover from quickly. They heal quickly. Anyway, so when someone died from this virus, you don't know if they're going to be rebooted or not. It just, no one knows. So what they do is they have kind of a holding room, like in the hospital, to kind of just wait a while, wait a couple hours or so, see if they're going to reboot. If they don't, take them to the morgue. If they do, then they take them to Hark, which I will get to in a second. But the main character, Ren, her number is 178. They refer to reboots by their number, and their number is how many minutes they were dead before they rebooted. And her number is 178, and that's the highest number that anyone's ever had. That's the longest anyone has ever been dead. So when she actually woke up, she was actually in the morgue with the dead bodies, because they assumed that once you're dead that long, you're not going to come back, because no one ever had yet. But she did. And so she is like the strongest, has the best senses, best reflexes and all that. But she's also the less like empathetic. She doesn't really feel, she has a hard time feeling emotions and connecting with people. So like some people, their number might be in the 20s. And if they're in the 20s, they're not much different than humans, because that's such a low number. So the longer they're dead before they reboot, the less amount of humanity they retain. Ren is a teenager. I'm not sure exactly what age she is, but she's now been a reboot for 5 years. I know that much. All right, and so when somebody reboots, I mean, if you die from the virus, they tell your family you die. If you reboot, they're not going to tell your family that you're rebooted. And once you're rebooted, normal humans that have not died, they see reboots as less than human, even though they're pretty much like humans, except for a few things. So they don't treat them as humans. And you become property of Hark, which is the Human Advancement and Repopulation Corporation, which is basically, they just control you and you become like a military, because they're hard to kill and they have these great reflexes and abilities. They're faster and stronger, but they're kind of forced to be soldiers. as like a police force kind of. So yeah, you can't go back to your old life once you reboot. And people are afraid of reboots, and they just think they're like gross and they're not human and they're zombie. Well, I think the government too kind of plays up reboots as being worse than what they are, so people will be afraid of them, so that they can enforce the law better and all that. But so in a sense, they are kind of like zombies, but without being like, they don't eat flesh. They don't stumble around trying to eat people, and they're not stupid and falling apart. They're just normal people, slight differences, Anyway, so it's about Ren, who, she works for Hark, and she enforces the law. She's basically a police kind of military kind of thing, where they train and they go out and they, if someone commits a crime, they'll send out a team of reboots to go take care of it. This new shipment, these new recruits, these new reboots come in, and the higher numbered reboots train the newbies, the new reboots, and Ren gets assigned to train this boy named Callum. His number is 22, so he's basically human. He doesn't want to fight. He doesn't want to hurt people. Since he was dead for such a short amount of time, he doesn't have all these as much of heightened senses, and he still feels emotions, whereas Ren really doesn't. So it's harder for him to just become the soldier and do what he's told. And so it makes it really hard for her to try to train him because he doesn't really want to do it. That's basically what it's about. These reboots are, about these. I just thought the whole concept of rebooting was pretty cool. I guess it kind of gets complicated that even though she has a hard time feeling things, she kind of sort of likes Callum, but she's kind of confused by that because she's not really supposed to feel anything. She herself, she feels like she's not human anymore, like she shouldn't enjoy stuff like that. And Callum doesn't like to follow orders because he is still so human, and she's afraid that if he doesn't start listening and doing what he's told, they're going to just get rid of him. They're going to actually kill him and be done with him. And she doesn't want anything to happen to him because she actually kind of maybe sort of likes him. I mean, that's kind of an interesting thing too, where, there's a bit of romance, but it's different than it, she's kind of reluctant because she has a hard time feeling things. So it's a little bit different. I'm going to read you a snippet from chapter 1 of Reboot. They always screamed. My assignment wailed as she slipped in the mud, whipping her head around to see if I was gaining on her. I was. Her feet hit solid pavement as she broke into a full sprint. My feet grazed the ground as I chased her, my short legs easily overtaking her panicked attempt at running. I yanked her arm. She hit the ground. The sound that escaped her mouth was more animal than human as she desperately tried to stand. I hated the screaming. I pulled 2 sets of cuffs off my belt and secured them around her wrists and feet. No, she choked out as I attached the leash to her handcuffs. I didn't do it. I wrapped the leash around my hand and ignored her protests as I hauled her to her feet and dragged her down the street past the crumbling wooden shacks. It wasn't me. I didn't kill nobody. Her movements became wild, almost convulsive, as I turned to glare at her. There's some human left in you, ain't there? She asked, craning her neck to look at the number above the barcode on my wrist. She froze. Her eyes flew from the 178 printed on my skin to my face, and she let out another shriek. No, there was no human left in me. The screaming continued as I led her to the shuttle and threw her inside with the other members of her gang. The metal bars clanged down as soon as I stepped aside, but she didn't try to make a run for it. She dove behind 2 bloodied humans and back, away from me. So that kind of gives you an idea of how humans think of reboots. Once she saw how high of a number she had, she was terrified. She wasn't going to fight back. And how Ren, didn't really care what she was doing to her. She didn't care if she was afraid. She just wanted her to be quiet and do as she was told and get in the shuttle. Anyway, it continues, and then she goes after another guy, and yeah, it's good. It starts with some action. I remember when I first found this book, I picked it up at the library. I pulled it off the shelf, opened it up. I like to read the first few paragraphs before I decide to check it out, see if I'm going to like it. And I sat there, I read almost first couple of chapters. I'm like, yeah, I'm going to check this out. I liked it. And this is the kind of book that I originally gave it 4 stars, but then like months later, I'm like, why did I do that? So I went back and I changed it to 5. I really like Reboot. I have not actually read the sequel, which is kind of surprising because I love the first book. But I kind of get the vibe that the second book is going to focus on Reboot's kind of fighting back against how they're treated. I don't really know if I care to read about that. I liked that the first one was just getting to know Ren and her liking Callum, and like that was interesting to me. And the other stuff, of course, there's more to the plot than that. I just don't want to give it away. But I don't know. I'm just not sure if I'd be interested in the sequel. Maybe I should read it though, because I really did like the first one. Okay, let's check out Goodreads.com. This book, out of 30,000 ratings, it has the rating of about 3.9 stars, which is decent. I'm kind of surprised it's that low, though. But it's not horribly low. It's okay. But I was surprised when I was kind of browsing through the reviews earlier that there's actually a lot of negative reviews that people don't like it. And I don't really... Personally, I don't understand that. I really liked it. The one thing I didn't like about it was that it was a bit slow. Did I find it boring? No. But I did think it was a little bit slow at times. But I still liked it. I don't really know what it is people aren't liking about it. I did see a few people compare it to Divergent. One person even said they didn't really care for Divergent either, but they thought Divergent was better than this, which I don't agree with. Personally, I didn't care for Divergent, which I know that's not a common opinion. But I loved the first Divergent movie, and the second one was okay. The third one I didn't care for very much. But the first movie I liked so much I saw it a second time, and then I was like, okay, I need to go read the book. So I did. The first book was okay, but I felt like the more books I read, the less I liked it. That the more I read, it felt like she was just, like the author was just making it up as she went. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but that's kind of what I got from it. But that's not what this podcast is about, so I'm not going to focus on that. Point is, I felt like this one was much more thought out and planned out. And Reboot, I liked the characters. I liked their interactions, their relationships. The action is good. There's lots of good action. There is violence. Probably some gore. I don't really remember. But just a heads up on that. Anyway, I wouldn't even compare this book to Divergent. I think these are so different. I mean, Reboot are about like these almost zombie-like people, and Divergent are about just people who live in different factions. I don't really see how it's very similar. Dystopian, yes. But that's about it. Anyway, so let's get back to some reviews. Oh, and just it's not really about how I feel about the book. I'm just trying to recommend books to you so you have some options that you can look into if you want to. You can feel free to agree or disagree or whatever. This person says, talking about the main character, Rin, it says, she's the kind of girl who kicks butt and takes names. She will pull your arms off and then use them to beat you and anyone with you to death without even breaking a sweat. She really owns every fight scene that is written. The relationship between her and Callum is so amazing. Amy really wrote them to be complete opposites, and I think that's why I love them so much. It's so rare in the books we read that the female doesn't become a strong character, that she already is one, and the guy is leaning on her for support. Which is true. That's a good point. Callum is very, compared to her, he's weak, because he's so much more human. At one point, he kind of gets sick, so he is, literally relying on her, her support to help him out. And in order to do that, she has to kind of go against everything she knows. Someone else said it has a great concept, but never lived up to its promise. She goes on to say, she couldn't really follow the plot. The writing was all right, but not engrossing enough to hold my attention, and it took me well over a week reading a little bit at a time before I could finish the book. I would not recommend this. So, I mean, you got people who love it and people who don't. I liked the plot. I didn't think it was hard to follow. I liked it. I was curious to see how it would play out. Someone else says, it's incredibly interesting, fast-paced, and original, at least when considering the plots and elements of the plot, and with alluring relationship dynamics and compelling action sequences. Yeah, I do think it's original. It's like her own twist on zombies. I think it's cool. Anyway, that's Reboot. There are very, very conflicting opinions on that book. So if it sounds at all interesting to you, maybe look into it. Maybe you'll like it. I don't know. I can't guarantee it because it's really split. People will either love it or hate it. So you can maybe try it, see if it's your cup of tea. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. But yeah, that's Reboot by Amy Tintera. I think that's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for listening. Hope you had a good time. And remember, you can check me out on Twitter at Books and Bits, and also on Goodreads. Just search for Books and Bits. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to this channel and like this video if you enjoyed it. And also, you can comment below with any thoughts you have on this book in particular. Anyway, I hope you all have a wonderful day. And until next time, guys, happy reading.